My name is Kat Wendorf, and this is the Mat. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a side of Deepak Chopra and a review on the book, Why is God Laughing? This Path to Joy and Spiritual Optimism by Deepak Chopra. And we're going to start in chapter 1. And I'm going to read a little bit and then give you what I got from the highlights. The reason I'm doing this book is I read this book a while ago, I'd say about 5 years now, and it spoke to me, and what it told me was things aren't always what they seem. God is always present in our lives, and he's always at work in our lives. And lately, a lot of people have been suffering in different ways, in different areas. They've been suffering with inflation. They've been suffering with war. They've been suffering with spiritual questions regarding these things. And for other people, day-to-day struggles. Union is yoga, and yoga is union. And we need to come together and share with each other, because without that, what is the purpose? And this book brings that to the forefront, that things are not what they seem, and God is at work in our lives every moment. And I hope that this helps to give you that reassurance and help you through whatever you may be personally struggling with right now. So, to start in chapter 1. Grace shines like a sliver of light. It penetrates the universe, undeterred by distance or darkness. You won't see it, but it knows where it's going. At any moment, someone may be touched by its mysterious power. Even Mickey Fellows. On this particular day, Mickey was speeding through the valley in his black Cadillac Escalade, keeping half an eye out for the police. The LA sun glared off the freeway, but for Mickey, sitting behind his tinted windows and wraparound shades, it could have been twilight. Say that again? He muttered into his cell phone. The club owners aren't happy. They say the new material isn't funny. They want the old Mickey back. It was Alicia, his agent. Screw them. They should kiss my derriere that I even bother to show up. Mickey Fellows had movie offers from 2 studios. His last divorce had even made the cover of People magazine. The only reason he worked the comedy clubs at all was to keep his feel for the audience. Alicia didn't back down. You don't want to play it that way. You may need those clubs someday. God forbid. Mickey lit up another mental merit. God has the advantage of witnessing every lifetime at once, erasing all differences. If you could look down on the human race from an infinite distance, you'd see every man was on the freeway that day. Like the rest of us, Mickey gave little thought to his soul. He didn't want to face painful truths, so he managed to distract himself almost every waking hour. At this moment, Mickey figured it was time for a laugh. I've got a good one for you, he told his agent. My grandfather's 80 years old, and he still has sex. Almost every day. He almost had it on Monday, he almost had it on Tuesday, and he almost had it on Wednesday. Alicia was silent. I think I have another call coming in, said Mickey. No, you don't. No, I'm not kidding this time. Hold on. He pushed a button. Hello? Is this Michael Fellows? Who wants to know? Strangers were always getting his number. I'm calling from Cedars-Sinai Hospital. Mickey felt a bead of sweat roll back down on his neck. He gripped the wheel tighter. Yes? In a few seconds between an impending disaster and its crash to earth, an amazing number of thoughts can race through your mind. Mickey saw himself at his annual physical the week before. His wife's face flashed before him as clearly as if they hadn't been divorced for 5 years. Cancer, AIDS, car accident. Fate's wheel was spinning, and the arrow was about to stop. I'm sorry, Mr. Fellows. It's your father. Did he fall? Someone's supposed to be watching him. He had hired a full-time housekeeper for his father, a placid Guatemalan lady who knew little English. Your father got the best care in the ER. Everything possible was done to revive him, but he couldn't be saved. Mickey didn't hear those last words. As soon as the voice said everything possible was done, a roar in Mickey's ears drowned out everything else. When did he die? The voice on the phone, a woman's and probably a nurse, started to explain, but the roar kept blocking it out. Wait a second, said Mickey, pulling off to the shoulder of the road. He breathed deeply and he shook his head like a swimmer knocking water out of his ears. Could you repeat that? He was brought in unconscious by EMS. It was a massive coronary. Your name was in his wallet as next of kin. Mickey felt faintly nauseous. Did he suffer? The voice tried to sound reassuring. If it's any comfort, this kind of heart attack is usually quick, less than a minute. A minute that felt like hours, Mickey thought. All right, I'll be there. I'll find him in the ER. The woman's voice said yes, and Mickey hung up. He pulled back out in the traffic and he raced to the next exit. The news had come as a shock, but he didn't cry. He didn't know how to feel, really. Larry, the old man. Mickey's mother had died young of breast cancer. Her side of the family was prone to it. His father, on the other hand, was tough as nails. A joke popped uninvited into his head. A middle-aged woman drops dead of a heart attack. When she gets to heaven, God says, there's been a terrible mistake. You're not due to die for another 40 years. The woman wakes up and goes home. She figures she's got such a long life ahead of her. She might, well, look good. So she goes in for plastic surgery, facelift, boob job, tummy tuck, the works. 2 months later, she's crossing the street and a bus hits her. This time when she gets to heaven, she says to God, what's going on? I was supposed to live for another 40 years. And God says, Mabel, is that you? Usually, Mickey found comfort in his own jokes, but this one followed a wave of guilt. It was no time for humor, yet that's how his mind worked. He couldn't help it. The ER waiting room was a tense place, and the air was heavy with suffering. Desperate faces glanced up at anyone passing by, hoping it might be a doctor. Mickey marched up to the admitting desk. When the nurse heard his name, she said, I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Fellows. This way, please. She led him through a set of swinging doors and down a corridor lined with gurneys. On top of them, there was a boy with his head swathed in bloody bandages, sitting upright, moaning. They stopped at the swinging doors at the end of the hall, and the nurse stood aside. Are you ready? She asked. Give me a moment, will you? Said Mickey. Take your time. The doctor will be right inside whenever you're ready, she murmured. To settle his nerves, Mickey tried to imagine how Larry's face would look in death. Instead, another joke popped in his head. God and the devil were arguing about the fence that separates heaven and hell. Your side's falling down, said God. Just look at it. So what? Said the devil. We're both responsible for keeping up our side. Mine is perfect. The devil shrugged indifferently. So what are you going to do about it? If you force me to, I'll get a lawyer and sue you, said God. The devil laughed. Give me a break. Where are you going to find a lawyer? Mickey chuckled, then he caught himself. Jesus, why can't I act normal? He muttered. Pardon me, said the nurse. Nothing. I'll go in now. Thank you. Somehow, in this entire 37 years, Mickey had never seen a corpse. The lights in the room had been dimmed, and a shape lay under a sheet on a table. Jesus, Dad, you couldn't give me a heads up? It was amazing how death stilled the air around it. Mickey pondered that, and he tried not to shiver. The smell of disinfectant made the room feel colder than it was. Minutes passed. Mickey pinched himself, trying not to think of another joke. A Catholic, a Protestant, and a Jew die and go to heaven. At the pearly gates, St. Peter says, someone coughed softly next to him. Mr. Fellows, I'm Dr. Sign. The joke flew out of his head. He turned to the Indian man in the green hospital garb with a stethoscope around his neck. I didn't mean to intrude, the young doctor murmured. He looked like he could be 20 except for his bristly black beard. Mickey felt a twinge of guilt. He thinks I was praying. The doctor made a reassuring motion with his hand. You can come closer if you want. Neither of them spoke as the young doctor pulled the sheet back. It wasn't nearly as hard to look at Mickey as Mickey had feared. His father could have been sleeping. Larry's color wasn't pale yet. Even at 70, he was a demon for keeping a good suntan all year. He looks peaceful. Dr. Sign nodded. Do you want to know exactly what happened? I wasn't on duty when he came in, but I reviewed his chart. Sometimes family members want the details. Just a few, Mickey said. He wondered if most sons would be reaching under the sheet to grab their father's hand. Larry's hands were folded over his chest. Would it be creepier if the flesh felt warm or cold? It was an acute myocardial infarction, a massive heart attack. At 2 around this afternoon, paramedics showed up inside of 5 minutes, but your father was probably dead before he hit the floor. Mickey said, so it was quick. Very. Maybe that accounted for the expression on Larry's face, which wasn't really peaceful. Mickey observed, slightly surprised. If your heart was exploding, all you felt was excruciating pain. Would you just look surprised? Suddenly, Mickey had a new idea that caught him off guard. I'm not dead, you chump. I'm just fooling. And I went to a lot of trouble here. You get the joke, don't you? You, of all people. Mickey had to fight the sudden impulse to kick over the table and knock his old man on the floor. That's not funny, you sick bastard, he'd shout. And Larry would explode into this big belly laughs as he got up and dusted himself off. Then Mickey caught the doctor's expression out of the corner of his eye. Was that nervousness that Mickey saw? The young doctor might be green. Maybe he hadn't seen that much of death himself. Mickey couldn't tell. But one thing he knew for sure, the situation definitely wasn't a joke. 3 days later, Mickey went to close up his father's apartment in the small one-bedroom part of the retirement complex in Culver City. He paid off Lupe, the Guatemalan housekeeper. She was the one who found Larry's body. There, senor, she said, pointing to Larry's favorite chair, a Barca lounger that Mickey remembered from when he was a boy. It had been through the wars. The dark blue leather arms were worn and cracked. So that's where you brought it to, Mickey thought. After Lupe left, giggling with embarrassment, he slipped her an extra 100 and hauled her battered vacuum cleaner out to her car. There was no reason to stick around. Mickey pulled up the blinds, shutting out the last feeble rays of twilight. He turned the thermostat down and looked around. Anything else? He found a half-empty bottled whiskey bottle on his father's bedside table. The label read Jim Beam, but screamed loneliness. Mickey wondered if his father had completely given up toward the end. He had always sounded upbeat on the phone. Nah, you don't have to run over here. Your old man's fit as a fiddle and tight as a drum, Larry would say. Or maybe just tight. Mickey swirled the amber liquor around absentmindedly. Tight was right. He then drifted through the shadowy living room, bottle in hand. Mickey plopped down in the beat-up lounger, unscrewed the top, and took a long swig. He held the bottle up, imagining a toast to the departed. Here's to Sally, who dresses in black. She always looks hot, she never looks back. And when Sally kisses, she kisses so sweet, she makes a thing stand that never had feet. As toasts go, it was old-fashioned and a little salty, and Larry would have approved. God bless, Mickey mumbled. He wasn't aware of falling asleep where he sat. Twilight surrendered to night. The whiskey bottle nestled in his lap. No tiny creatures stirred in the woodwork because there was no woodwork. In any case, management had not been very good about spraying. Wake up, kiddo. I am awake. Prove it. Open your eyes. It wasn't until the moment when Mickey realized his eyes were closed. A faint glow shone on the other side of his eyelids. When he opened them up, he saw the glow was coming from the TV that he had given his father for Christmas, who had turned it on. He started to get up and the whiskey bottle rolled on the floor with a clunk. Mickey didn't pay attention, though, because the TV was acting strange. The screen was filled with gray snow, but that wasn't strange in itself. He'd canceled the cable service the day before. The strange part was the fuzzy snow contained faint shapes. Mickey leaned down and took a closer look. He couldn't make out the outline. It was a head, then two hands. Don't turn it off. He couldn't tell if the outline of the head had Larry's face, but this was definitely his father's voice, which should have made Mickey jump back in alarm. Instead, he was relieved because it proved that he was dreaming. You're in the TV, Mickey said, raising his voice. He pointed out the dream's absurdity. It would break the spell and he'd wake up. I'm not in the TV. Don't talk crazy. I'm in limbo. They're letting me talk to you. They? God's people. You can see them? Not exactly. It's complicated. Just listen. Mickey hesitated. His glance went into the carpet where a fallen whiskey bottle was dripping onto the floor. He could smell the sharp alcohol that was so wrong. One thing Mickey knew for certain. He couldn't smell in his dreams. I'm turning this off, he mumbled. He punched the power button on the remote, but the gray fuzz didn't disappear, or the shapes. They were vaguely visible inside it. The hands now came into focus as they pressed up against the screen from inside. I want to help you. I don't need your help, Mickey said. He punched the remote several more times. Forget the TV. The TV's just a way to reach you. You don't believe in psychics. This is more than convenient. Mickey shook his head. You can't be my father. First, this is limbo. Business, this limbo stuff, it's crap. Second, the hands turned to fists and started to bang up against the screen. Shut up. I didn't mean church limbo. It's more like a halfway house. Neither here nor there. Get it? No, how could I? One thing about this bizarre apparition was convincing. Larry had always had a short fuse, and so did the voice, and it started to yell at him louder. Don't blow this, kiddo. Stop being a jerk and listen to me. All right, all right. Mickey sat down in the lounger again. I'm listening. It's different here, I bet. You don't understand. You can't. 1 minute, I'm sitting in that chair, the one you're in. The next minute, the whole room starts to disappear. The walls fade, and I start to go through the ceiling. You had a heart attack. You didn't feel that? Pain gets erased from your memory. Except when it doesn't, said Mickey doubtfully. Don't interrupt. I kept going up and up until I could look down and see the whole earth and everyone on it. I saw everybody on the daylight side and on the night side. I saw all ages, all races, and it felt incredible. You can't imagine. You didn't go into the light, said Mickey. Nope, I wondered about that. I kept floating further into the space, and the earth got smaller and smaller. I figured it must be getting closer to God. God's in outer space, said Mickey. The voice ignored this. It was getting more excited. I kept looking around, but nothing, no God, no angels. And then I heard it. Can you imagine, kiddo? I heard the voice of God. What did he say? He didn't say anything. He was laughing. Who was he laughing at? You? No, he wasn't laughing at anybody. This laugh was everywhere. It filled the universe. It was pure joy. And I'm going to stop there. Because that, to me, friends, is the main part. What did he say? He didn't say anything. He was laughing. Who was he laughing at? You? No, he wasn't laughing at anybody. This laugh was everywhere. It filled the universe. It was pure joy. Everyone should hear that sound. Kiddo, it would make all the difference. I'm not fooling. Until the world laughs with God, nothing's going to change. And we'll pick up in chapter 2 next time. But remember, laugh today. It's good for your soul. And the Lord is with you. Peace be with you. Namaste, my yogis.